Hi guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. Today we're going to continue our discussion on organic collectability versus mass-produced scarcity in the collectibles trade with a little case study. Because there's a company out there that actually is producing items in a scarce and limited manner that do accelerate in value on the secondary market. Now, before I get to this topic, we got to do a little bit of a review as to what's an example of an item that has organic collectability versus an item that was produced with mass-produced scarcity in mind. So if you look at items like a Black Lotus Magic the Gathering card, or a Pokemon Illustrator card, or a copy of Stadium Events, something of that manner, those items were created with no collectability in mind. Those items came out, they hit the marketplace, and most people either played with them, used them, resold them, had no idea that within 20, 30, 40 years, these items would become valuable collectibles on the secondary market. What I mean by organic growth is a lot of these items that I just named were actually seen as worthless when they first came out. If you don't believe me, you go look up when Magic the Gathering first premiered. There were people that were playtesting the alpha edition of Magic the Gathering, and they would get a pack of cards, they would open it, they would play the game at one of these playtest areas, and they wouldn't even take the cards with them after they were done playing. They would just leave them on the table. Nobody had any idea that Magic the Gathering was going to become the next big thing, and a lot of these cards from the earlier sets especially would be coveted and sell for thousands of dollars in the secondary market. Same thing's true in regards to Stadium Events. When that game came out, nobody cared. It became iconic because Nintendo collectors and the story of how that item infringed upon Nintendo having the license to produce that same game, a lot of collectors clamored towards that item and said, well, gee, that's iconic. That's coveted. And now today, that item has value. But back in 1986, 1987, a copy of Stadium Events was not worth that much. In fact, if you would have bought it and saved it, you would have been seen as crazy because everybody would say, well, wait a minute, video games aren't really collectible yet. Back in the 80s, very few people collected video games. If they were collecting video games back in the 80s, they were collecting the earlier stuff, Atari, Intellivision, ColecoVision, computer systems, stuff like that. Believe me, I was there. Now, let's talk about mass-produced scarcity a little bit. On the other end of the spectrum, or the other side of the proverbial coin, you have companies today like Nintendo, Funko Pop, Limited Run Games, Wizards of the Coast, which is now owned by Hasbro, producing all these flashy items that are hitting the market, and what they're doing is they're limiting production. So they're telling people, you know, we only made 100,000 of these or 10,000 of these. So if you want to buy it, you better get your order in today because after they're sold out, we're not making any more. So a lot of these people are going after these items, and the smart ones are flipping them back in the marketplace immediately because they realize that these items have no organic collectability. Well, to all the Timmies and Poindexters out there who are uneducated on the subject of economics, finance, and of course how the antiques and collectibles trade operates, they see these items being produced that only have a print run of 2,000, 3,000, or 5,000 copies as liquid gold in their mind. So they rush out and they pay a premium to buy these items, and they hold these items for 10, 20, 30 years thinking that they're going to be the next Stadium Events or the Black Lotus Magic card or the Pokemon Illustrator card. And what happens? The market moves on. Nobody cares about mass-produced, scarce items that do not have organic collectability. Well, what if I told you there was an exception to this rule? There is a company out there right now that is making high-end luxury handbags that the minute they hit the primary market, they can be resold on the secondary marketplace for a significant profit. And a lot of high-end auction houses, a lot of collectors, speculators, and investors are flocking to this particular item at present time. Well, you're probably going to say you don't believe me. Well, this is what I want you to do. I want you to log on to Heritage Auctions right now, or whenever you get time, and you go to Heritage Auctions at www.ha.com, and just in the search bar, type in the word Birkin, B-I-R-K-I-N. Again, B-I-R-K-I-N, and just hit enter in the search bar. Now, if you have an account with Heritage Auctions, I would encourage you to log into your account before you do this and click on completed auctions just to see how much some of these Hermes Birkin high-end handbags have sold for. You're going to come across auction listings that show individual Birkin bags selling for over $200,000 a piece. Now, we have to talk about what Hermes understands about marketing limited, mass-produced items on the secondary market that a lot of these other companies like Nintendo, Funko Pop, Limited Run Games, and the like all get wrong. So in order to do this, I want to talk to you about the origins as to how the Hermes Birkin bag came to be a fashion statement and a high-end status symbol of celebrities, entertainers, and the well-to-do, along with the famous. So we got to take our DeLorean time machine and go all the way back to the year 1981. It was 1981, as the quote-unquote story goes, where Jane Birkin, a British actress, was sitting in first class on an international flight, and she happened to sit near the CEO of Hermes at that particular time. Now, if you don't know who Hermes is, I can forgive you because they're a high-end French luxury designer of women's fashion accessories and mainly handbags. Well, back in 1981, Hermes, which is spelled H-E-R-M-E-S, by the way, guys, was not really as well known as they are today. So Jane Birkin was on this flight, and she starts to strike up a conversation with the then CEO of Hermes, and the handbag that she had at the time spilled open, and the content spilled out onto the plane floor. Well, as she's talking to the CEO, she says, you know, I wish somebody could create a elegant, luxurious handbag that's also practical to use for the average working woman. Well, the CEO's ears perked up, and he said, okay, I'll call your bluff. How would you design such a handbag? So they talked about it on this flight in 1981, and after the plane landed, they exchanged their phone numbers, and they kept in touch. Well, it took roughly 2 to 3 years to come up with the design and the manufacturing elements that went into this luxurious handbag. So in 1984, the very first Hermes Birkin bag hit the market, and it had a retail price of $2,000. Now, guys, you got to understand, back in 1984, $2,000 was a lot of money. If we factor in inflation, if we factor in opportunity costs and the like, that $2,000 back in 1984 was probably equivalent to $6,000 to $8,000 today. So that was a significant amount for anybody to spend on a handbag. Now, ironically, Hermes started producing these items in limited quantities because they didn't understand how much demand there would be for this high-end handbag. So let's say that they thought that they could sell 10,000 of these handbags a year, which is still a significant amount for an item that costs $2,000 a piece. What they would do is they would make 9,000 of them or 9,500 of them, and because some people or some consumers would go without, that would create artificial demand for that particular product. Now you have to understand, a Hermes Birkin bag is handcrafted by a master craftsman who spends roughly 48 to 72 working hours making each bag. The bags are made out of exotic animal skins overall. Most of them are either made out of alligator or crocodile skin. And of course, they have gold or silver clasps and zippers that go on the bag and accessorize it. So this is a high-end luxury item that takes time to make. But what Hermes understood was it's better to produce an item like this in limited quantities and less overall supply on the marketplace, for which demand will always exceed supply, because that's what creates the wanting or the unavailability of the product is what's attracting most people to the product. Now, an interesting thing happened. In 1984, 1985, 1986, and even 1987. The Hermes Birkin bag really didn't set the world on fire. A lot of people were not buying this handbag. It appealed to a hardcore group of people that had millions upon millions of dollars and could afford to own multiple handbags from multiple manufacturers of the more expensive market share, meaning they could afford to buy more than one luxury handbag for their collections. Well, what started to happen was, in the 1990s, celebrity culture hit. And what I mean by that is, you had people like Kate Moss, Posh Spice, Jennifer Aniston, all clamoring to get luxury handbags and luxury women's fashions from the high-end marketplace. Well, as the story goes, what started to happen was a lot of these celebrities started to notice that these Hermes Birkin bags were really convenient to buy. I mean, they were made of high-quality materials, they lasted a long time, and they also were very practical, much like the way that Jane Birkin suggested they should be produced when she was on that flight talking to the CEO at Hermes. So a lot of the celebrity culture started to become really attached and enticed by these high-end handbags. Well, what would happen is they would go and eat at the Ivy or all these posh restaurants out in Beverly Hills and LA, and the paparazzi would come, snap their picture, and the picture would be plastered all over People magazine or on Access Hollywood. And the average person would see all these celebrities out and about and eating at these restaurants, and they would have a Hermes Birkin bag with them. Well, what happened was, as a result of that, demand exploded. Now you have people in Main Street and on Wall Street, to be fair as well, who are making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year on up, but who are not famous, who all want to get their hands on these Hermes Birkin bags. So, what does Hermes do? Hermes gets a brilliant idea. You know, we're selling these bags between $2,000 and $5,000 a piece, and pretty much, now that celebrity culture has taken hold, everybody wants to get one of these. So they're calling up Hermes, they're sending emails, because by this time email was already out and available. We're talking by 1994, 1995, and they're all asking the company, how can I get one of these handbags? You're not making enough. So Hermes had a brilliant idea. He said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to cut production further, but we're going to raise the price of the item to $10,000 to $20,000 per handbag. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to set the market on fire by cutting production and raising the price. Now, the marketing department stepped in and said, you know, you shouldn't sell it for $20,000. Let's set the price right around $9,000, $9,500. We'll keep it right there, but we will significantly limit production. So now, if there's supply in that there's only 5,000 or 10,000 of these produced per year and 20,000 people want them, well, that means roughly 50% of those people who want them are going to go without. So it's going to automatically create significant demand for this product. So they started doing this year in, year out, where they would only make a limited amount, and they would put the price at $9,000, $9,500 for these handbags. Well, Hermes started seeing celebrities like, because now we're in the late 1990s, Hilary Duff, Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, all these young up-and-coming stars that are starting to make it in the entertainment business, they're going out and they're buying an Hermes Birkin bag. So now they had another idea. You know what we need to do? We need to limit production even further, and we need to come out with an order list where if you want one, you can order one if you're willing to pay up front. And when they become available, it may be 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, we'll ensure that you get our Hermes Birkin bag. But you're going to wait for it, and you're going to pay for it up front. Now, this is a brilliant strategy, guys, because if you're being paid close to $10,000 for an item that you don't have to deliver for 2 years from now, you understand how much interest you can get on that money just investing it in a bank or through stocks, bonds, other financial assets, and you're not even delivering a product yet. You're telling someone that when we get around to it, we'll deliver your product, but it could be a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, whenever we get to it. Well, this went on for a couple of years. then Hermes got an even better idea. They saw that demand was really taking hold. Not only did entertainers, celebrities, and the ultra-wealthy elite want these handbags, but also, again, there was still demand from the unknown dentist or the unknown doctor or the unknown lawyer or the unknown stockbroker who's making $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 a year but isn't famous but has the means to spend $10,000 on up on a handbag. So what happened was a lot of people kept contacting the company and they said, hey, I want to put an order in. I'll put an order in. Finally, the company said, you know what we're going to do now? We're not taking any more orders for these. We're doing a wish list. And everybody said, what the hell is a wish list? Well, we're going to make X number of handbags per year, and you can put your name and all your information on this wish list. And if we call you up, if we like you enough, we'll sell you the handbag. Well, this immediately caused a lot of controversy on the market. And they said, well, you mean you're going to pick and choose who you sell these handbags to? And Hermes said, absolutely we are. So what happened was, what do you think? If Miley Cyrus happened to want a handbag that year, and so did Joe Schmo, who makes $300,000 a year, guess who got the handbag? Miley Cyrus, not Joe Schmo. Now, this was brilliant marketing, because think about it, guys. They didn't have to spend anything on advertising, because Miley Cyrus, she's going to go out and she's going to carry that handbag everywhere she goes, and the paparazzi's going to photograph her with it. So what do you think is going to happen when a lot of people see Miley Cyrus or Paris Hilton with her new Birkin bag? Demand shoots up, supply's down, the price escalates. So now what do you think happens? A lot of people want to buy these items as an investable commodity. So now you have people that want to get these handbags. They don't want to use them. They don't even want to be photographed in them. What they want to do is they want to buy them and they want to put them in their house, their closets, their safety deposit box, their off-site climate-controlled storage locations, and they want to use them as investments. Now, let's analyze the market for Hermes Birkin bags today in 2019 going into 2020. Well, if you go through heritage auctions like I told you to do, and you start searching these completed listings, you're going to see that there's handbags that are selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece on up. That is why. Because the average person cannot go to the primary market and buy an Hermes Birkin bag. The market has been manipulated by the manufacturer to benefit collectors, speculators, investors, and high-end auction sites like Heritage. Now, a lot of you are going to ask me, especially after my commentary on what's been happening with Wada Games and the Pawn Stars episode that showcased Super Mario. The difference in this case is the manufacturer is directly manipulating the market. It's not happening by a third-party company or a third-party grading company. So in regards to Hermes, they're not doing anything unethical. They're telling you up front that even though you may have the money, and even though you may want to buy a Hermes Birkin bag from us, we may not sell it to you. We will, however, sell it to a celebrity. We may sell it to people that we know. We may sell it to people that we like. But ultimately, if you want one, you're probably going to have to go to the secondary market, and you're going to have to pay a premium to bid and buy one. And that's what's causing massive demand for this particular item. Now, do I agree with the fact that people are buying these for investment purposes? This is the problem that I have with this particular market. I want to be very blunt now that we got close to 20 minutes into this video. You have to understand that these handbags, even though they are being produced in very limited quantities, and most of them being made are different from one another because they are individually produced and crafted by hand while still mass produced, every year more and more are coming onto the marketplace. So I would not advise the average person who cannot normally afford to pay $10,000 on up for a luxury handbag like this to getting into the market for that particular reason. Because at some point, I really think a saturation point is going to be reached where a lot of these handbags being produced are going to stop increasing in value across the board. Also, you got to understand when we start talking about fashion, whether it's men's fashion, women's fashion, trend changes, fashion changes. So I would be concerned if I had $100,000 or $200,000 invested in one handbag. That said, if you're a wealthy person and you want to own one Hermes Birkin bag and you make $200,000, $300,000 a year and you can afford one of the lower end models that hit heritage auctions or the like, by all means, go and buy one if that's what you want to do. But just understand, it is a more risky investment, in my opinion, than putting the money into a mutual fund or real estate or a corporate bond per se. So you just got to understand that going into the market as a whole. But if you watched this video and you analyzed it, I hope you understand how Hermes is able to market a luxury good like this versus how Nintendo, Funko Pop, limited run games, strictly limited games, Wizards of the Coast, how they handle their high-end products. So you can kind of see the differences. Now, I know some of you are going to critique me and say, Sean, you can't compare the luxury goods marketplace to the overall collectibles marketplace. But I'm going to come back and say, well, you don't understand because they're the same marketplace. Nintendo games sell on heritage auctions, as do Birkin bags, as do Magic the Gathering cards. So it just depends on what type or what side of the marketplace you want to look at as a whole. It is comparable though, guys. If you did like this content, please consider liking this video. Please consider leaving me a comment below if you did not like this video at all so that I know. And also consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks, guys, and have a great night.